Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. OpTic's coach JPKrez has been giving lots of thoughts over the last few days as to the new status of OpTic Texas going into the new season, saying especially though that OpTic Ghosty dropped from the team, let's not forget, and now joining Los Angeles Thieves, had bar only Sam Octane LaRue the best comms in the entire game. And if OpTic want to replicate what they had in the most recent season with Ghosty, they're going to need Kenny and also Dashy to step up certainly in that department. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. Unfortunately, we again have to mention this. I'm kind of fed up of talking about it at this point because I honestly thought this was going to be a done deal now. And look, I don't know, to be honest, whether I care or want this to go either way. Whether Microsoft actually get the deal done, whether Activision Blizzard says it is. I know that many people are looking, oh, the grass is going to be greener with Microsoft. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We don't really know. But we can't control it, can we? So we just have to see what happens. Now, to be honest, I thought that only the UK's Competition and Markets Authority was saying, hang on a second, guys, we're not so happy with this, you know, monopoly, this type of stuff. You guys know how it goes with the antitrust laws. And I thought that was the only holdout. And then the update was just 2 days ago that the CMA had said, you know what, you guys have changed the structure of the deal somewhat. They probably haven't really done much, but they've changed some words around on the paper. And the CMA was like, all right, we're more happy with it now. We'll give you guys an update in the coming days. But now the US FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, they're coming back in and they're saying that they've announced that they intend to continue their internal administrative case to block this acquisition. And then Activision says, we're focused on working with Microsoft towards closing. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on there anymore, but they keep trying. And, you know, these things always take longer than they hope for, than they expect to happen. And, yeah, I don't know. The FTC are doubling down. The CMA might see this as well and double out. I don't know. But, yeah, it's going to happen at some point, you would think. But it's not going to happen particularly soon. So, that obviously does have implications, right? Because if Microsoft come in immediately, then they might, even for next year's Call of Duty League, change how it's structured. If it takes ages for that to happen, the CDL will probably keep running as is. It depends. I mean, they might just shut it down anyway. But I'm kind of fed up of talking about this story at this point, to be perfectly honest. Now, let's talk about what JP's had to say. Now, let's not forget, going forward, he's not going to be the head coach of the OpTic team. Of course, that's going to be Karma. But he was pretty much the only man there for a large part of last season. He was the assistant guy, the analyst, really, to Rambo, and then we know how that ended with all the drama with Dashy, and then it turned out that, yeah, he was going to be out the door. So JP stepped in to kind of do the full-time coach analyst role. There's many elements to this. I think it makes sense for Karma to come in, and from the start of the season, I think he can do a good job getting these guys on the right track. But JP obviously knows his stuff as well. He was also mentioning sound equalization. He talked in this video about, I think it was Slash's idea initially, to say that going forwards, now, dead silence is going to be a thing in the new game. Are the footsteps going to be entirely silent? We don't know, because even in games like, I think even Black Ops 2 and stuff, great games like that, dead silence was not absolutely 100% silent. It was just 99% silent. Ghosts, it was, I believe, 100% silent in that game. So that's kind of what you want. And if that's the case, as maybe it was in Cold War, then sound EQ isn't so much of an issue. But if that isn't the case, and also there's other perks you might want to run, it's going to be a problem, especially online. Let's not forget, the CDL said if you know, they banned it from use on LAN, but they said, well, we can't really stop you using it online, so unlucky if you want to use it. I guess that's fair game. JP says what they should do instead is do a random check. Let's say every other series, or one series a day, they do a random check after map 2 or map 3 or something of the players, of a random player's PC. It would only take a couple of minutes to do. Just, you know, check that random player's PC, and if they're caught using it, that's a disqualification. That's, you know, I don't know what the consequence would be. But if that was the case, I don't think anyone's really going to be risking getting caught in that situation. So that would be a solution that could be worth considering. But JP also gave some thoughts with the Stocksman on this podcast a couple of days ago on the brand new OpTic Texas team, how they're going to fare, and really just how they need to adapt and change. Because losing Hook for Pred, that's potentially a bit of a one-for-one type thing. But Ghosty for Kenny is potentially a bit of a different deal. Ghosty came in and, according to JP, did an absolutely masterful job in the comms. JP says that he was the best communicator he's ever worked with, and I mean, look, let's not forget, JP was on New York for a couple of years, so he's played with plenty of great players on that New York stint, and including even the likes of Crimsix and Claystar, absolute veterans. He says Ghosty, brand new rookie, had the best comms of any of the players that he's worked with, and only seconds to Octane in the entire league. Saying that if OpTic want to maintain what they had last year with Ghosty, they are going to need for their other guys to step up a little bit, right? And this is one of the big things I think that Thieves have in their arsenal as well, is that, you know, Ghosty can be a really great player going forward, I think. Yes, his numbers on OpTic weren't exactly insane, but that wasn't what he was required to be doing. And even Ghosty said in this episode the other day with Thieves that he's looking forward to having a bit more freedom on the map, and it's not like his great communication is going to go anywhere. People were even comparing it to Formal, you know, the human UAV and all this type of stuff. So this is what JP has to say.
I think it was Ann. He reached out to me. He was like, "Yo, what do you know about Dan Ghosty?" I was like, I heard good things about him in the amateur scene, because he was like, "Yeah, we're looking about picking him up." So I was like, "Bet, like, I'm down. Whoever you guys want to play with, I'm down to coach or help coach anyone." And Dan was great. Like, he honestly has better comms than like 95% of pros. Like, he's top 3 in comms and better comms than probably like anyone I've ever coached. Like, and that's insane to think about, but he was like super knowledgeable about the game, great comms, and like, you couldn't really ask for more for someone who's just joining the team as an amateur, joining OpTic as an amateur, and being that like 4th guy to try to be the glue to bring this team to champs. And, you know, literally, I would say Octane may have been the only person in the whole league with better comms. And it's like, it was everyone firing on all cylinders. Like,
curious what he thinks the new OpTic roster will do that should propel them to being a team that can win this year versus their team last year.
I think we'll have more consistency with AGs, but the comms might drop off a bit, but it'll be on the rest of the guys to step it up that what we lost with Dan.
Right. Okay.
You know, so Kenny will probably get into that position and improve his comms like that he was last year, because he had Sam, who was like super good with calming.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting like Kenny to bring it up, but also like Ann and Brandon to also bring it up, because obviously they can't work with nothing and not, you know, do the same thing that we did last year, where it's like Dan is mostly calming for us, but all of them are all good calmers. It was just something that Dan could do to take some pressure off of the rest of them.
Yeah, he could take it over.
So, of course, with Octane now retired, unfortunately, from the CDL, that leaves, well, who's the best communicator in the league? It would be Formal, probably, if Formal was still playing, but, you know, according to many, people would say that Ghosty is kind of that guy now, and is replacing Octane on Thieves as, you know, the human turret, human UAV, whatever you want to say, could be a pretty good combination there. But it's interesting to hear what JP thinks that OpTic have to change going forwards, because, look, they obviously dropped Ghosty, and there were reasons why they got rid of Ghosty, even though, as JP said, from his perspective, Ghosty did everything that he possibly could have done. Joined as a rookie, played as well as he did, turned the team around as well as he did. There was, you know, he did the best job he could. Now, there were talks at the end of the season that maybe Ghosty and the others were, they dominated so much online that they started to get maybe a little bit complacent. It seems like Dashy wasn't so happy with some of the actions that Ghosty was taking. There was talk at the end of the season about excuses being made and stuff like this. And in the end, Ghosty's gone. Despite, you know, I don't really think he could have done much better, but that's how it goes sometimes. And OpTic were looking to absolutely max out their team, and that's what they've now done. But they definitely do lose something with Ghosty departing from the team, and probably that's mainly in the communication department. Now, is Kenny going to be a slouch in comms? Absolutely not, as far as I'm concerned. Kenny will have learned a lot from Octane, I'm sure, over the last couple of years, and probably will be able to step into that role quite nicely. But are his comms going to be as good as Ghosty's were? I don't know. That's a debate for sure. JP seems to think probably not, and therefore the other players will have to step up to a certain degree. It's not like Ghosty also wasn't frying at times as well, and Kenny can do that, but Kenny is an interesting spot really, where he's one of the biggest X-Factor players. This always was the case on Thieves. Kenny, you know he's got crazy takeover ability, but sometimes it just doesn't really happen, and maybe that's fine if Kenny's doing all the comms work and the other guys can just focus on slaying, because when you've got Pred, Shotzzy, and Dashy, you shouldn't have too many issues getting kills on the map. But, you know, when Kenny does turn up and drop a 1.3, they're probably winning the map pretty comfortably. So who's going to need to step up here in the comms department? And this was maybe some evidence as to why that's the case. I don't know. There's probably other factors behind why this is true. Because of course, when one of your players is dead, then you're going to get traded out more and you're going to have, well, it's going to go worse for you in engagements when one of your players is either dead or off spawn. But when Ghosty was alive, then OpTic, the amount of kills they got per 10 minutes was substantially more than when Ghosty was dead. So maybe you can attribute this to Ghosty's great comms when he was alive and he was in the firefight, helping the guys out. Maybe there's other factors at play, but still I thought it was pretty interesting to look at. And who needs to step up here, right, out of these four guys? Mainly it's on Kenny, right, to replace Ghosty in that role, and I think Kenny's made that quite clear. But outside of that, I would say that Dashy maybe has to step up a little bit. In my opinion, you don't really want to be relying on your SMGs too much in the communication department. I know that different players have different opinions on this. Some players actually quite like to be communicating heavily and doing all the comms on an SMG, because as an SMG, you're one of the first players in. You get to see the setups first, you get to see the situation first, and therefore you can communicate that to your team. But I think in general, SMGs have a lot to think about, and it probably makes more sense for the ARs to do more of the comming stuff, and that's generally what we see with the likes of Octane and Formal and even Dan Ghosty nowadays. So maybe it's on Dashy to step up a little bit. To be honest, I've been expecting Dashy for the last few years, and I think he's made progress for sure. But for Dashy to step up a little bit more in terms of what he's doing for the team in and outside of the game, in the same way that Scump at the end of his career, you know, arguably had to step up and do a bit more of the comms, a bit more of the leadership, because Scump hadn't had to do any of that for his whole career, because he'd had Formal, he'd had Crimsix, he'd had others on his rosters. At the end of Scump's career, you know, he had to step up a little bit more. And the same situation with Dashy in a way. He's been around now for, you know, we're talking 6-7 years of competitive play. Be the leader, be the communicator, and maybe that's what Karma and JP will be instilling in. Now, will it be solely on Dashy? No, I think Kenny knows, and he's made it clear to the team that he's going to be doing that job primarily, but I think that JP's probably right that the other guys need to step up a little bit more if they want to really get to the next level. And I think this is an issue that has, in part, affected FaZe over the last couple of seasons. I don't think FaZe have stunning communication at all, really. Slasher's alright, he's pretty good. I mean, you know, Simp is, I think, pretty good. Cellium, I mean, we know that there's always jokes about the way that Cellium communicates, and obviously their communication is solid, but I don't think FaZe have ever had spectacular comms. I don't really think it's ever been a massive strength for them, and maybe it doesn't matter that much when you're just so good, but it is an important factor. I mean, we know that Thieves team, okay, that Thieves team was great on paper. Kenny, Envoy, Octane, and Drazah. But the fact that they were able to win in the way that they did at the end of Vanguard, in completely dominant fashion, never looked like they were going to lose any of the series against the top team they played, apart from the very first one against Boston, of course. I think a lot of that is led by teamwork and also communication that FaZe have not always been the best at. And, you know, Drazah coming in might help them with that somewhat, but I do think that if OpTic, theoretically on paper, the teams that are being formed, yes, New York are the world champions, yes, Toronto have made major upgrades, but the fight for the #1 spot in the kind of regular season standings is probably going to be between FaZe and OpTic, you would think, on paper. And potentially, if OpTic can get their comms just to that slight next level, that might give them the kind of leg up they need in this situation. But very much enjoyed to your perspective and all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.